Hi, Jesse.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I am good.
What
This
about?
week has been rough.
I was about to ask.
No, it's really nothing to do with her behavior, but
Okay.
we had a scare. I want to say what, Thursday, Friday, she started having diarrhea again.
Hmm.
And it's her third diarrhea in like the 5 weeks that I've had her.
Wow.
Um, That's a lot. And so, but this time around, it escalated really quickly. And she started having diarrhea on Thursday. By Friday morning, within the span of 2 hours, she was passing blood, bloody diarrhea plus just blood, like 4 or 5 times. And it's not just one or two drops.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
It is a puddle. So we brought her into the vet, and her blood work came back fine. And it it just seems like they couldn't quite pinpoint what the problem was, except that maybe it's food sensitivities.
Hmm.
So she's on medication, and we put her on a gastro diet, a specific diet.
Hmm.
And within half a day, she was back up on her feet, and she's doing fine. And
Hmm.
she's been doing fine since. Um, so yeah,
So they
I
didn't. They didn't. So because her blood work was clear, because she had the Giardia last. She had that twice.
right.
And
But
is that
the vet was saying, like, even with Giardia, it's not typical to have so much blood.
right? Right.
Um, because I took pictures of it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's a lot versus not a lot anymore. And I would, like, she would have diarrhea outside. I would bring her back into a playpen area, like clean up. And then like within 5 minutes, I'll come back to like a pool of blood. Um, or I would bring her from her crate. I'll just carry her from a crate to downstairs. Even when I'm just at the door, I look back and there's like a puddle of blood on the floor. I'm like, holy cow, what in the world is this? Yeah, but I mean, her energy level is back up after she got her medication. Um,
What was the medication for?
her diarrhea,
Okay.
like so, because the blood is like bright red. They say she definitely has inflammation of the intestines. Like right at the end. Um, but her blood work came back to show that she doesn't have infection anywhere else.
Hmm.
Um,
Where did you?
so, and I don't give her, I mean, besides the fact that she picks up stuff on the floor, um, I haven't been giving her any new treats. It's just a transition from her gastro food when she's having diarrhea to like her regular Purina Pro plan puppy formula. Um, that's the only change in terms of her diet.
All right.
I've not even started giving her human food.
What was she eating prior? What was the food she was on?
She was always on Purina Pro plan when I first got her. Um, I started her on the dry. Well, she was first on the breeder gave me the performance 2030 or 3020 one, which I had her on for about a week, which is the dry food. And then um, a couple of days in, like she wasn't really eating, she wasn't drinking. I brought her in. Turns out, she prefers wet food. And so we gave her a mix of wet and dry, but it was both the Purina Pro plan. But I switched it to the puppy formula, like chicken and rice. And then a week into the diet, she had diarrhea again, had giardia, and then we put her on the Royal Canine's gastrointestinal canned food, wet one. So she was on it, and she was on the first round of diarrhea medication. Within a day, everything was kind of back to normal. Then once I was done with like 5 cans of those, I transitioned her back to her Purina puppy formula and a mix of wet and dry. And so like she's been switching between the two quite a bit actually.
Yeah. So I guess after this, they figure out what's going on. Because is this gonna? Are they where? I'm assuming not, but as if this is gonna be a chronic thing, or it's just like a recent thing that happened because of her intestines, and then see what happens.
We don't know. So given her history and given the frequency of her diarrhea, um, the vet is thinking that it's probably she's probably sensitive to something, and so because the Royal Canine Gastro food has worked for her, we'll stick to that, and then slowly transition her to like the same brand and the same type of food, but the dry kibble, and see how she does. We'll stick to it for about a month or so, and then slowly introduce, something else to see if it really is food sensitivities or if she'll, grow out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. At this point, yeah, I don't know if this is chronic or not.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest is you do a Zoom with my trainer, Maddie.
Okay.
Maddie was actually the one that would do puppy training classes,
Right.
but because of COVID now it's me again. But she's also my nutrition specialist.
Okay.
She has a veterinarian that she sees. I believe the veterinarian's name is Dr. Royal Blue, I think.
Okay.
Or Dr. Royal. Sorry, I just had a dog. I think the dog's name is Royal Blue, so I just combined them. I believe the doctor's name is Dr. But she will tell you, okay? I'll send an email connecting you. And so one thing is Purina and Royal Canine are garbage.
Okay.
Okay, anything by Purina is garbage. Anything by Royal Canine is garbage. And I know the veterinarians, promote this. It's because they get a kickback.
Sure.
Okay, the foods are Maddie can explain how they work and stuff if you're interested.
Yeah.
But just quality wise, like Pedigree is also Purina. Pro Plan is a step above Pedigree, but it's still not a good food. There's plenty of better options out there. They're of course more expensive. They're not that much more expensive.
Right.
But there's limited ingredients. They know what's going into the food.
Okay.
So there's other choices, and the veterinarian that she would recommend you to, if you're able to get Pretzel into her, is like a kind of I believe a dietary like kind of specialist as well.
Okay.
And now Maddie does raw feeding. Okay.
I was gonna ask you about it actually.
Yeah. Maddie will. I know very little. Maddie is the expert. Okay.
Okay.
Is you could do raw. It's there's pre-made raw now. There's also like making it on your own, and Maddie's been working on content and stuff like that to educate people. But there's also and people tend to think it's expensive, and it's not. I had a friend of mine who she had 2 dogs, and she would go to like a butcher and do everything herself. And it would usually take her one day for the entire month. Like she would just pre-prep meals, but it was like the same cost of a bag or whatever she was spending on kibble. It's
Right.
just it was more work for a day. Um, So cost wise, you can also do a blend of kibble and raw. Dogs aren't meant to eat kibble. Like this is a human thing that we've created to feed them more, like to make it more economical. It's not so expensive, right? And it's not so much work to have to you know, uh,
Yeah.
because raw feeding is very specific. Okay, you can't just like give your dog some chicken and then think it's
Yeah.
gonna be fine. You have to balance out the diet.
Yeah.
And Maddie knows all about that stuff. And then the veterinarian that she recommends, she's more so, I think she's like a holistic vet where instead of like jumping to medication and stuff, sometimes it can be dietary things.
Yeah.
And then they'll change the diet up and then see how that affects the dog. And then from there, if they need to do any kind of medication and stuff, then they kind of do it that way.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll put you in touch with Maddie. And then you'll schedule through her for the Zoom.
Perfect.
Okay. And then she may be able to educate you more on all that other stuff, like dog reactions to like certain proteins and things like that. Like she really knows that stuff really well. I'm
Okay.
ignorant, okay? I can train puppies and I can do, off leash training and aggression stuff, but when it comes to nutrition and all that biological stuff, I'm admittedly ignorant of it. Okay.
But you
So
have her, which is perfect.
yes, exactly. That's why I have her.
Exactly.
So yeah,
That's,
so she'll take care of you. Okay.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Anything else with Pretzel?
Um, so remember how I said like she was peeing a lot?
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it's the case, but when I transitioned her back to her kibble, the problem kind of went away. I mean, she's still having to learn how to hold her pee for 2 hours. That is still ongoing, but I'm just wondering if the wet food was giving her a lot more water.
Yeah, there's moisture
Um,
in there.
right. But that's the only thing that is different. Um, in
So
that when I started giving her all wet food, like not a mix of wet and dry, that was when she was peeing a ton, and that it was clear versus yellow.
I would say that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
Because when like let's say when dogs eat a raw diet, because they're getting moisture from the meats, they don't drink as much water,
Okay.
right? But your puppy is still potty training,
Right.
right? So a dog that's already potty trained goes, well, I already got all this water from here. I only need a little bit from here. Whereas for
She,
puppies,
but she doesn't finish all her water if she's on her wet food though.
okay. So she is regulating to a degree. She's just not
Yeah.
able to hold it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably what it was. Now, kibble tends to dehydrate dogs. So there tends to be like for certain brands, it dehydrates dogs, and then you'll see like an uptick in water intake, but it ends up like it's noticeable. Like you can tell the difference between because I'll ask my clients. That's why I ask a lot of questions, about the dog or the puppy, like especially if it's potty mistakes. Remember last time when we were talking about it?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out like what is it, because it's usually something like either the puppy's dehydrated and they're drinking more water that the owner's not aware of. Maybe they didn't go potty or whatever. But yeah, I would say it's probably the canned food.
Okay.
Okay. And so when you pick your food for Pretzel, don't worry if she doesn't eat. Okay. Pick a food and just feed it to her. Now, I don't care personally if
You mean when I transition? If I were to transition.
right, because you went from Purina Pro Plan to like wet food, some kind of wet topper or wet food, right? And then I know you had to switch because of the diarrhea and stuff, but then the wet, like there's a lot of switching around.
Yeah.
And all that switching around can create a picky eater. Okay. My dogs will eat whatever I put down.
Right.
Um, so typically people create picky eaters because, especially with their puppies, people are like overly sensitive, like, oh, the puppy didn't eat today. Like, oh my God, let me like put some steak on it or something.
Right.
And then the puppy eats the steak, and then the puppy learns like, oh, if I just wait and don't eat this crap, I'll get something better, right? Is you can create a picky eater that way. I
Yeah.
don't care that you feed wet food. I would just make it consistent,
Right.
right?
Right.
I always make sure the dog will eat its base kibble before I put anything else in, you know?
Oh, okay.
So, because if they'll eat their kibble reliably, less likely that if you add something in later that they'll become a picky eater. Okay.
Okay.
So then, like, let's say you put her on a new food and she's just like not eating it, turning her nose to it, walking away. Let's put it up. She'll eat next time.
Right.
Okay. Like kind of like with the kennel, I think you had the same issue.
Yeah.
Same deal. So then once she starts eating, because she's like, all right, well, this is all there is. It's like me growing up. I hated peas.
Right.
And then my mom was like, this is what you're eating, chicken and peas. I'm like, but I don't like peas. She's like, well, you ain't eating dinner then. Like, that's what I made. So,
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for dogs. As long as she doesn't go days, because then that could be something else going on. Once she learns like, okay, this is it. This is my only meal. That's all I'm going to get. Then after a time of like reliability, then you can start adding in other things if you'd like. Okay.
Okay.
And then if you do raw diet, like I've even had some people tell me that their dog will turn their nose to some raw things. I don't know why. I mean, it's funny because I've never really struggled with dogs that were picky eaters other than my chow mix, but that's because I kept putting human food in her food. And then when I ran out of human food, she's like, nah, I don't want this. And she walked away. But she ended up eating after like, 5 days, 4 days or whatever. So, but just something to keep in mind, because if you switch, I guarantee you, you're gonna be switching bags like 2 times, 3 times a week.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But definitely want to get her on something better than Purina and Pro Plan, and the Royal Canine stuff. Now,
Yeah.
it can happen where like a dog will only do well on like, let's say Royal Canine gastrointestinal, right? Then I'll say, then it is what it is. Then like just keep the dog on it then.
Right.
Because I have a couple of clients that their dog couldn't digest proteins or something like that. So they had to have like a very specific food, and they tried other foods, and then the other foods just weren't working. And I'm like, yeah, you tried it, didn't work.
Right.
Like, but it's like in 10 years of training, like maybe 2 or 3 dogs that was so bad that they had to eat a specific, like, type of formula.
I'm hoping she's not one.
Where did you get her from, by the way? I forgot.
It's this breeder called A Heart for Puppies. A friend had gotten a golden doodle from there, and the only difference with this breeder is that, well, I picked her up from an Amish farm in Indiana. I didn't have to be on a waiting list. She was available at 8 weeks when I saw her on the website, as with all other puppies. So,
Did you see the farm?
sorry?
Did you see the farm?
I was on the farm.
You walked around and stuff?
Yeah.
Did it look clean?
Not inside though. Pretty clean. There were horses though, because it's an Amish farm.
Sure.
But other than that, it looked clean.
So I'm not saying that this is the case, but just kind of FYI, because I just realized this, like, I think in the past year.
Okay.
Is when people think of the Amish, they usually think like, oh, like, nice people that, that kind of have turned their nose to technology and stuff.
Right.
But they're actually a large population of the puppy mills.
Okay.
Because dogs are livestock.
Mm.
They're not like, like for you, like Pretzel is like
Right.
a part of your family.
Right.
And there's breeders that breed like the dogs are part of the family. Like they only have 2 litters a year, right? It's very strict, and that's why their puppies are not always immediately available.
Right.
Because they're not constantly breeding them. They're breeding a couple of litters. They make sure to find homes, and then before they even have the litter, they're like already putting out there, we're planning a litter. submit your application because we're going to
Right.
reserve the puppies because we're looking for a puppy right now ourselves. Maddie's doing that. And, either there's nobody breeding right now because of COVID, or if they're breeding, they're only doing like 1, maybe 2 litters this year. Excuse me,
Right.
this year. So, um, and that's where a lot, like I had a client, same thing, where the dog was from an Amish breeder, but had a lot of health problems.
Oh.
And then, but then that's why I asked them, like, did you see the farm? Did you go there and everything? They're like, yeah. I'm like, and then like for you, like, why didn't go inside?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying that is what has happened, but before, whenever someone would tell me I got my dog from an Amish farm, I used to think, oh, cool farm,
Right.
like dogs running around at a farm. And then I forgot who it was. Maybe it was probably even Maddie who educated me and said, like, no, like the Amish are a big population of the puppy mills because dogs are livestock. And I'm like, that makes a lot of, like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Miss Pretzel here. Maddie will be a great resource for you.
Okay.
She'll educate you a lot more than I can on that stuff. And then I guess we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like.
It's an expensive puppy.
Oh my God, like I brought her in so many times to the vet that she is now like, everyone knows her, and you're like, you just can't seem to catch a break with this one. Yeah. So, and I mean, for the 5 weeks that I've had her, how many rounds of medication and antibiotics that she's been on?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like my dogs, I've had both of them for 8 to 9 years. And my pit, the craziest thing was she had a reaction to what we think was a rabies shot.
Okay.
And she had partial facial paralysis.
Oh boy.
And then it got better, and then the other side had partial paralysis, and then that got better. But if you look at her face, like if she's panting, you can see how it's offset because it didn't fully recover.
Right.
So that was like the biggest thing that happened to her. And then my Chihuahua broke his jaw because he's older, so he has dental disease. And I went to pick him up to put him on the bed, and he rolled off my hand and fell on the floor, and he broke his jaw.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
Yeah, so they said that paired with the dental disease, so that was very expensive. But other than that, I've been fairly lucky with my dogs, and it's been the usual, like, the shots once a year,
Right.
and the occasional diarrhea, but nothing within like what you've experienced in the 5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in 5 weeks, I've spent over $1,000 just on vet visits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a client whose dog he spent like $70,000 on. So.
Oh my God. On what?
So one of the biggest thing was the dog broke his hind leg, and it was like a $10,000 surgery.
Oh.
And he's he has no insurance because he's predisposed to certain things. And then he had chronic ear infections that he was always taking him in for like every couple of weeks. And then just recently they figured out it was allergies, and he gets an allergy shot that supposedly resolved the issue. But every couple of weeks he was going in for the ear infections.
Oh boy.
And then like he also destroyed a lot of stuff, like in the home and everything. Like right. I think he did like $30,000 worth of damage on his house.
So, do you get insurance, like pet insurance for your dogs?
I don't have it. I've thought about getting it because they're already like considered seniors, so I'm not even sure if they can get it. But it's on my list of like, yeah, I should probably pop them on insurance now because they're getting older. Right. And then there's going to be like more blood work, potentially more things to bring them in for. And it's worth it. I know there's one through the ASPCA that I believe covers about 80% of the vet costs.
Okay.
So like, and there's different tiers. Yeah, it's like 80 or 90%. It's a huge chunk. And I had an ex-girlfriend when she got her dog. She got her dog in October. And no, I'm sorry, she had her dog, but on October, she put her dog on pet insurance. Okay. And it was like $100 a month. And the next month, her dog was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my God.
Okay? She had a type of heart cancer that
Mhm.
the tumor was growing by the valve and stuff. And it was pumping. So there's like a membrane around the heart when it beats, and there's like it's a thin little membrane, and it was filling with fluid, which was putting pressure on the heart. So it
Right.
couldn't, beat correctly. And they covered it. She had literally put the dog on a month before, and then she went to the she must have spent at least $30,000 to $40,000. The dog didn't survive, but she was able to extend the dog's life another year or so
Right.
because of the chemo and the radiation, and they had to put in a needle to remove the fluid. But it was about $30,000 to $40,000, and they covered 90%, 80
Okay.
to 90%. Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely worth it, and then probably better sooner than later, I suppose.
Yeah.
So in case anything does pop up where she's predisposed, like she's already on the insurance, kind of like I think it's the same thing like with humans.
Right. Yeah.
Or
Right.
insurance, and
Yeah.
you have something like you're covered, but if you're predisposed and you come to them, they'll most likely like turn you away.
Yeah.
Same thing with dogs.
Okay.
And I believe hers came covered like the yearly shots and stuff.
Did you say ASPCA?
Yeah, I believe it's the ASPCA.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure if you Google that and look up pet insurance, but there's several of them now. There's another one that's really good too that also covers 90%. What was great about hers, and maybe it's changed in the past couple of years, is that they covered non-electoral procedures, which means like the dog didn't need to have the procedure for them to cover it. Like they would cover it whether or not the dog
Oh,
needed it.
right.
Yeah, because the veterinarians told her like, look, she's gonna die. The best we can do is give her comfort and extend her life.
Right.
Approximately a year. And so she called them and was like, hey, like, will you cover this? And they said, yeah. So unless that's changed, I think that was really good because then you have the options of like, even if the dog doesn't necessarily need it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check that out. Thank you. So other than that, she, I mean, she's still responding to like correction. I've not had to bonk her kennel. The pet corrector has worked a little, or whether I relocated her kennel, like what you suggested, to the other room, and it's definitely helped a lot.
Okay.
And yeah, the pet corrector has worked so far, so we'll see how that goes. I just started having her, and so I don't know if I'm walking her too much. Okay, every morning, well, this is in addition to her regular potty walks, right? So in the morning, I'll bring her down just for potty. I'll bring her back up. After her meal, we'll go for like a 20-30 minute walk. And then in the evening, what I just started doing now is we'll do kind of in total, it's probably about a 20-minute walk. But I walk her to the park. We spend time in the park where she's actually just walking around for a good, 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll walk back.
Mm-hmm.
The time at the park is considered play, not so much exercise.
I mean, it's
right?
still activity. So, right, so you do a 20-30 minute walk in the morning, and then a 20-minute walk later.
In the evening, so say about 5.
And then you said what was that, 45 minutes to an hour thing?
Well, it's it's more like 45 minutes, like time at the park.
Time at the part where she's free and loose and, or like, you know, just on her own
Just
thing.
wandering around, yeah.
Okay, so that's like an hour and a half of activity.
Right.
Okay. But that 45 minutes, it's not like walk, 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 walk. It's just like she's just walking around and sniffing and
Yeah.
kind of leisurely.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And she's what, 3.5 months, 3 months?
Yeah, she just turned 16 weeks.
Sorry, 4 months. Okay. I had to do my
Yeah,
math
slightly
there.
under 4 months, yeah.
Okay.
I had to do the same.
Sorry. How does she, I mean, how does she look? Does she ever look like exhausted or anything?
um, so, I mean, so yesterday was the first time we kind of really spent that much time at the park. Um, she was still able to walk. She was still able to walk home in her usual trot and pace. Um, but for the rest of the afternoon, she was just pretty much laying down in her playpen, napping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, like she wasn't crazy,
Okay.
which is kind of nice though.
Yeah, it's really personal preference. Your veterinarian would probably tell you that's too much.
Yeah.
Maddie would probably tell you that's too much. And I would tell you that sounds fine. Because I go by the puppy, you know, like
Is it too much for? Is it too much for their legs? Too much for their body?
it's so they'll tell you like the joints, or like because their bones are still growing and stuff, right? Definitely with the bigger dogs, like the German Shepherds and the Great Danes and the very
Right.
large breed dogs, they tend to be very careful of with their joints and everything. But you know, like I've had people do everything by the book, and their dog still has problems.
Right.
You know, and I get people who do everything wrong, and the dog's completely fine. You know, so that's why I say it's personal preference. Like so when we talked about like the socializing and stuff, I'm like your veterinarian will tell you not to do it because of diseases, and I'll tell you to do it because of you know, behavioral things and just socialization, right, but to be responsible, right?
Right.
So like if you told me like, yeah, I walk her and like halfway through I have to carry her back home, I would say you're probably exercising your dog too much. The
Right.
puppy, the dog will tell you. Like I've walked my own dogs, you know, and let's say it's a really hot day, they'll start, like my dogs walk really well, they don't pull, and all of a sudden they'll start yanking me towards the side, you know, and I'm looking and they're pulling towards shade.
Right.
And they're telling me, hey, it's really, really hot, we need to cool off. And I go, okay, right?
Right.
So your dog will tell you what's too much, you know?
She just sits a lot. Like she sits. And I always feel like she's just sitting to watch
Sure.
people or things.
Sure.
It doesn't look like she's sitting because she's tired. I would imagine that if she's tired, she'll be laying down.
Yeah, most likely. And this is when she's on her own time or when you're walking?
When I'm walking her.
How long, like let's say you do a 20-minute walk, out of those 20 minutes, how much of that is sitting down?
She sits whenever somebody is like, whenever she sees somebody in the distance,
Mm-hmm.
when like something's going on. Like sometimes I'll indulge her. Like if she walks really well, I'll just let her sit, and you know, people watch a little bit. She doesn't sit for a long time though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure I can quantify how much time she's sitting down.
Okay.
In her walk. It probably adds in total 5 minutes.
For a 20-minute walk?
Yeah.
So is it a 15-minute walk with 5 minutes sitting or a 20-minute walk with 5 minutes sitting?
It's a 20-minute walk with like 5 minutes sitting.
That sounds like a lot of sitting to me.
That is a lot or
It
not?
sounds like a lot. So so she's sitting in response to something.
Yeah, she's like sitting and watching.
Okay. Just keep an eye on it.
Okay.
I personally don't care. The only reason why I would say keep an eye on it is if, most puppies is go, 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 go,
Right.
right? And not that puppies won't stop and observe things, but like if, like, let's say there's a loud bang and she like turns around and sits down, right? That's to me a nervous response, okay? Because she's responding to a stimuli and then observing and going like, what was that about, right? Now, which is perfectly fine, because as long as she like gets up and goes, okay, no big deal, and starts walking, she had the response, she observed, she recovered, she continued with the task at hand.
Right.
Great. But then if you start to see that happens and either becomes more prevalent or she starts to get grumbly or growly or like barky, now that's developing into something bigger.
Right.
Okay? Not that it can't be fixed, but it just gives me an idea of like what's going on. Like any puppy or every puppy that I've ever walked or worked with will, at least with me, just go. But it's not
That's what
until
she does on her flat collar.
mm,
Actually, actually no, I'll correct that. Even with a flat collar, she does sit and watch. Like,
sure, yeah. Yeah. So just
yeah.
like when she sits, just think like, did she just randomly sit, or maybe she heard something, and it can be anything, like, because to you, because you know what a car horn sounds like, and like a tire backfires or whatever, you know what all that stuff sounds like, you know what it is.
Right.
So like, let's say you heard something and then like it's like whatever, that was just the wind blowing really hard, and then all of a sudden she sits down. I would assume that that gush of wind triggered a nervous response, and she sat down and she's going, what's going on?
Right.
you know and then it just kind of it tells you more about your puppy, what her triggers are, and then you might find like after a few times she stops caring about it and she just keeps walking because she's like, okay, whatever, this is nothing for me to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay. But if she doesn't know how to interpret it or recover from it, that's when you start to get other issues like barking and growling,
Right.
at rollerbladers or skateboarders, stuff like that, which it can be addressed, but at least you're aware of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, she definitely recovers from it. She, I, well, actually, I'm planning on bringing her in next week.
Okay. I was actually wondering, but after you said the whole, the gastrointestinal thing, I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and I've been watching her really closely the last 2 days, and even this morning she's been fine. So as long as she continues on her medication, she'll be good. And like she definitely gets startled very easily.
Okay.
With anything that is new. She's curious. She'll approach it like really, you can see her tail wagging, but she'll approach it like really cautiously.
Yeah.
And then she'll sniff around a bit and then she'll find. But during her walks, like if she sees like somebody cycling or somebody running or a skateboard, she'll sit and watch. Or if it's something that's loud, she'll sit and she'll turn around. But sometimes she won't sit. Sometimes she'll just like, turn around and like, what the hell is that? And then I'll just keep walking.
Good.
And then she'll just continue with me.
Good.
It's never escalated into something where she'll like growl or bark.
Okay.
And I'm also trying to bring her into like new places. So there's this coffee shop by me that, allow dogs in. Initially, she didn't want to go in. Like, she did not want to go in. Now she knows exactly where she's going, and she goes straight for the door.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, more exposure like that's good.
And she had her first impromptu play date with another puppy yesterday.
Oh, how'd that go?
At the park. It took a while for her to warm up. The puppy was extremely excited and was barking like crazy. She was so quiet. She was definitely curious, but she kept backing away. And after maybe I want to say 10 minutes or so, I mean, she would still sit by the dog. Like, she isn't like darting away. But after 15 minutes or so, she started warming up and she started playing.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, like, with is there anything I should know, anything I should stop or watch out for when she is interacting with other dogs?
From her, or from the other dog?
Both, I guess.
The apprehension's normal that you saw. I think she actually recovered fairly quickly. Like, we had a dog here, a little Yorkie, who was like essentially isolated from everything. And it took like hours of, maybe I told you about, we had dogs, these two dogs, Bob and Jerry.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry was like being a jerk, like wouldn't leave her alone.
Yeah.
It took a lot before she came out, because she was so isolated.
Right.
So the fact that Pretzel opened up after 10 to 15 minutes is pretty good. Okay. In terms of play, growling, biting, even showing teeth and stuff like that is a part of play.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean aggression. So it's just learning to decipher, is she curling her lips because she's playing, or is she curling her lips because she's done playing?
Okay.
Okay, so then you have to start learning and reading.
What is curling her lips?
When they go like that?
When they show the teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because like my pit bull, Lexi, she's an aggressive player. And, she'll growl and she'll curl her lips. And people will misread that because she's a pit. And they'll think she's being aggressive. Like, no, she's playing, So let's say you see Pretzel and she's playing with another dog, right? And you see them kind of going back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
And you see her barking and showing her teeth and curling her lips and stuff. It's most likely in play.
Right.
Because they're both moving and engaging. Now, let's say Pretzel comes and sits at your feet and she says, I'm done playing. And the dog comes by to Pretzel and she curls her lip. That wouldn't be playing anymore. That would be, you need to back away.
Right.
Okay. So it's the same behavior, but it's interpreted differently depending on what's going on within that moment.
Right.
Okay. Don't assume that just because Pretzel is playing with the dog, that it means that she's fine with the dog in any context.
Okay.
Now, she's still young. This is stuff that's more so going to come into play when she's 6 months and a year.
Okay.
Because that's when dogs start to mature a bit more. But everybody takes things as face value, right? At face value, and they'll say like, oh, my dog's not aggressive. Okay. And think of aggression as just anger. Okay. So that's like saying my kid's not an angry kid. But I'm sure the kid gets angry. Right? But they're putting this very flat or very like black and white. My dog is not aggressive. Does not mean your dog cannot become aggressive.
Right.
Okay. Is a lot of people think, oh, I had my friend bring their dog over, the dogs are playing, and then when we went in the house, my dog attacked the dog. Right? And I'll say, I'm like, yeah, sounds about right. And they're like, how? They were playing, they were having a good time. I'm like, yeah, but that was in the yard. And then when you go in the house, it's more of the territory. And then I'll ask, like, how did they enter? And they'll say, like, well, my dog went in first, then the visiting dog, then the other dog turned around, and then the attack happened, right? I'm like, yeah, because the dog didn't invite the dog in. You know, your dog didn't invite the other dog in. Okay. So then it creates territorial behavior. Dogs switch very quickly. But people just think like, oh, if they're playing here, everything's going to be fine. You know? So the example I give people is like, you know, I have friends that could come over. I've known them for more than half my life, and they could open my fridge and grab a beer and whatever. Like, I don't care. Right. Then I got friends that, you know, maybe I just made a friend and I've only known them for a month. And I invite them over and they open my fridge. That's weird, right? Like, I've only known that person for a month, but they're making themselves too comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So we're friends, and you know, we're cool with each other until something happens.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of the same thing for dogs. You know, in most cases, yes, you know, dogs are pretty much like whatever. But there's so many different contexts. That's why I said, you know, Pretzel could be sitting at your feet, and when the dog approaches, she could have a problem with that because she doesn't like the dog approaching your personal space.
Right.
You know, so that's a different thing for her. So that's the one thing is I go, just don't assume. I keep an eye on things. You know, let's say she's great with playing with the dogs and stuff, and then you bring out treats to give to each of the dogs. You know, I just had a client in the past week that her mom was giving a treat to her dog and her own dog, and then the mom's dog growled, and then the other dog attacked that dog. You know, just from giving treats. So because she thought that everything was going to be fine, and because they've known each other for like, you know, so long and stuff. I'm like, no, I'm like, just like with people get in arguments, you know, but if we get in an argument, it's usually a verbal exchange, you know, and if it becomes physical, like we use our fists for the most part, whereas dogs use their teeth. So things that I always say to watch out for would just be like, let's say Pretzel is drinking water and another dog comes to drink water from the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I just watch, you know, to see if there's going to be any tension there, not just from Pretzel, but from the other dog.
Right.
You know, because like I could be at the dog park and I'll see a dog drinking water and I'll see another dog approaching, and then the dog will start showing the teeth and, you know, growling, and the owner's over there talking to somebody else, not paying attention. And then like I'll say something to, you know, to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's going to escalate into a fight. So whenever there's a resource, you know, a resource can be a ball, it could be a stick, anything the dog takes within possession. So if a dog is running around with a stick and it looks happy and fun, and then you see Pretzel approaching that dog to like maybe play chase or like play steal the stick, and maybe the dog doesn't like it.
Right.
Now you have to call Pretzel back to prevent that, you know, because that's, you know, that dog is the owner's responsibility, right? So then your responsibility is, oh, I see this happening or about to happen. Let me get Pretzel back so I prevent anything from escalating. Okay.
So in the earlier situation where at the dog park, the water bowl, right? There's already a dog there, and they're growling when they see another dog approaching. How do you de-escalate it?
You really, I don't want to say you can't, because you can. Okay. But it involves too much. That's not, that's why I was like, it's the owner's responsibility. So like I get the clients where they'll say, my dog, if they'll take a ball, and if other dogs go after the ball, they'll go become aggressive.
Right.
Then I teach them to not allow their dog to have balls. So then we prevent the problem.
Right.
If there's no ball in that dog's possession, there's nothing to get aggressive over. Okay. And I give them the tools to do that. Whereas most people just take their dog to a dog park, and there's very rarely anyone who's that proactive about that, you know? So your best bet is always just to, you know, be mindful of what Pretzel is doing, where she is, who she's playing with, right? Who she's approaching. And I'm not making you, don't be paranoid. You're just observing, you know? So if the dog is drinking water and I see Pretzel going over to get water and I see the dog look at Pretzel and it looks tense, call Pretzel.
Right.
Right off the bat. Like, don't worry about going, hey, sir, your dog is growling at the water, because that's going to take longer because you have to relay to him.
Got it.
He's
Yeah.
got to care about it, and then he's got to relay it to his dog, and maybe he doesn't have control over his dog. And then Pretzel, in the meantime, is still going, right? So then what I do is if I know a dog has issues, like let's say you have the neighborhood dog park and you learn the dogs, right? Is you would know these dogs I want to keep Pretzel away from. If I see them at the dog park, I just don't go to the dog park. Like it sucks because some people bring dogs to the dog park that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And I get it from clients. They'll say like, yeah, I try to, I like to take my dog, but this particular dog there attacks other dogs and still keeps going. So they're like, when we see that dog or if we see the dog coming in, we just leave. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you can talk to the owner, but chances are if they're bringing that dog anyways, they're not going to listen.
Yeah.
So Pretzel is your responsibility. Okay. So if you see another dog doing something inappropriate or aggressive, I would just remove Pretzel. Okay. Because the other thing is, I've had people tell other people they should train their dog and it doesn't turn out well.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but yeah, expect her to growl and, when she's playing, even bite and snap. And you might even see like maybe the dog is like pushing at Pretzel and then Pretzel goes, and she like snaps back. It's okay. Let it resolve. All she's doing is you did too much.
Right.
Okay. People see it as aggression, but it's just Pretzel setting a boundary of like, hey, you like, that's too much for me. You have to calm it down. Okay.
I'm laughing because she does that. And the only time she does that is when I pick her up and take a picture of her. What is, I don't know. I don't know if it's just her, but my ex had a dog too, and it was the same thing. Like, they just don't like to take pictures. I don't know if it's something with the phone.
Are you putting it in her face?
No, so like with her, whether it's just taking a picture of her, or sometimes it's a little closer, or like taking a selfie where she can see it all, when she can see herself on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she growls.
Mm.
I'm like, what is that? And
Yeah.
she doesn't growl with anything else. Just that.
Yeah, so she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what a cell phone is and what you're doing, like in a selfie, like Pretzel.
She doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
I guess.
So I'd keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Like how often is it? Like every time you do it, that happens, or is it like every now and then?
I don't do it very often, so I don't know. But enough times for me to know that it's something that in general she doesn't like.
Okay. Is there anything else that she has those kind of boundaries with?
No, that really is the only thing.
Are you talking to her when you do take these pictures?
Yes, sometimes.
Have you ever, okay, so have you done it without you saying anything, like just taking a normal picture?
Yes.
And she does the same thing?
I don't remember. I'll test it out.
Yeah, look, because energy, like people interpret like, when you do the high pitched sound and stuff like that as like happy energy, right? But dogs, it's not so much about happy, it's more so excitement, stimulation. And then when you have the dog stimulated and then you add something the dog doesn't like, it can go into a defensiveness.
Okay.
Or it could also be potentially playful. Like I'd have to like see and observe and like, test it out, But like there's plenty of videos out there of people doing the same thing with their dogs, where they're like, and the dog goes or like starts like getting aggressive and stuff like that. But if you listen, like the person's doing something behind the camera.
Okay.
Like they're talking, right? And it's the energy that's upsetting the dog and causing the reaction because this is like an added thing. You know, that's why I was like, if you just came in and took a picture like that with no energy, I'm wondering what her response would be.
I will test it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, anything else?
No, my last question is anything else I should be, I don't know, watching for training and
The obedience
doing
stuff.
with
So
them?
like you had more questions than most people, because typically with the puppy lessons, like the first two classes will be like this. And then after that, we start like they'll use the food to train the puppy and everything, and I'll coach them.
Right.
But you had more stuff come up. So if there's more questions, you're more than welcome to ask questions. Okay.
Okay.
Um, because the training stuff can be done at any point.
Right.
Okay. That's why I was like, just watch YouTube videos. And then when we get there, I'll observe and then I'll help you fix anything that you're struggling with. But you had more so behavioral things and the leash walking and the potty stuff, and then all the other stuff as well, right? So for the next one, if you have more questions, ask your questions, okay? Otherwise, if you would like to cover like the food training stuff, then I wouldn't feed her the morning of so that she's hungry.
Okay.
And then I'll just have you show me what you've been working on, and then I'll critique a couple of things and say I would do this and you want to change this, because I think that's going to be number 6 for you, right?
I think I think next week it's probably our last session.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you really care to do the food training stuff, you can always book another one. But again, it's like it's super simple stuff. She's going to get some of that here with us, with the puppy head start and everything. And then I'll talk to my guys to see if we can record some of those sessions so you can kind of see. But at this age, like I think I told you before, at 6 months is when I start to train puppies to a more advanced degree.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to send you videos on that, right?
Yeah.
Or did you just YouTube it?
I just saw it on your playlist, I think, in your
Okay.
YouTube. Yeah.
So like my specialty is behavior and like off leash obedience.
Yeah.
Obviously I can do puppy stuff as well. But what you do now or what you don't do, obedience wise, really doesn't affect things in the future.
Right.
Okay, because I've trained dogs who've had 0 training for 2 years, and they're just as good as a dog who did have some training.
Right.
The only difference is that the dog with no training takes a little bit longer, whereas the other dog, since they already kind of had an idea, was able to progress more quickly.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah. Commands. Well, the only command that I've been using really is sit and stay.
The come command.
Sorry.
The come command.
Okay.
That's super important. Yeah,
okay.
That's one that you should look up. And her name, does she recognize her name?
I think so.
Okay. If you go to our YouTube channel, I think I have some up where I do name recognition.
Okay.
It's very much similar to the come command. Okay. And I know I have a bunch of puppy videos that Maddie did that I haven't uploaded yet because I have a lot of videos to like edit and stuff. But I have somebody doing that now. So then once I show them how to do that, we'll have more puppy content going up.
Okay.
But yeah, name recognition and come when called are super important.
Okay.
So I'm sure if you YouTube it, it's super simple. Like, you would say Penny, I mean, not Penny, Pretzel, Pretzel, and then, have a treat for her. And when she comes to you, you would say, good girl, you would give her the treat, praise her, and then I recommend doing it randomly. So like, let's say she's like, maybe she's giving a little free time and you're like in the kitchen or something and you call her Pretzel and she comes running over to the kitchen and you feed her and then you ignore her. Like you're making it like kind of random. because people tend to do come when called in a training session, and that's it.
Right.
Then they expect it to work like outside. So like maybe when you're walking her at the park and she's sniffing something, you know, you have some treats with you, and then while she's sniffing something, pretzel, and then, you know, you move back and she runs to you and you give her a treat, good girl, and then you let her go back to doing what she's doing. Okay. It's real simple foundational stuff, but definitely something that I would recommend, you know, that doesn't hurt to like start teaching that now.
Okay.
Okay. The heel, I don't worry about the heel. Any other, you know, the basic commands are sit, stay, down, come, place, and heel. Okay. The most important one is the come, because in case the dog runs away,
Right.
make your dog return. The down or place command is meant for stationary control. So if I said, you know, pretzel, go to place, she won't move for 2 to 3 hours or longer, for whatever length of time I need. But that's all dependent on what the owner needs from their dog.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay. So you'll see Pretzel next week if everything remains
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Do you know now offhand if there are specific days where you have puppies?
Well, now we have Zoe, who's I think been coming every day.
Okay.
Zoe is a sable Bernedoodle, so she's a little bit bigger. We also have Rufus now, which is a German Shepherd, but he's like I think 10, 12
He's
weeks.
so cute.
He looks just like Marshall, the other German Shepherd puppy we had. Then we have Sixby, who's been coming back. She's an older puppy, and we have Walter, who comes I think once or twice a week. But I think and we have Tango. Tango's the yellow lab.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tango comes every day that Maddie is here, because that's
Right.
her puppy that she's training. So we have at least Sable and Tango for sure, which would be good for Pretzel because they're a little bit larger.
Yeah.
Just to get her used to, like, you know, bigger dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that Zoe's been coming every day. Otherwise, there's also Tango at minimum, if not other puppies.
Okay. If I want to bring her in tomorrow, I know it's not a lot of notice. Today it's Sunday.
It's fine.
Do I just show up? Do I let Maria know?
You would call the number.
Okay.
So if you show the address, I'll give it to you just in case. 2700 North Campbell.
Okay.
It's right off the expressway. It's in Logan Square, and it's Campbell, C-A-M-P as in Peter, B-E-L-L.
Got it. Okay.
And then we're on the corner of the street. It's a big warehouse, and like you'll see on my garage on the south end, it says Canine Perspective. It's spray painted. Like you can park behind that garage, or you can just pull up and double park.
Okay.
And on the front door, like you'll see 2 pieces of paper or signs. One has the information. We open at 7 Monday through Friday, and then 8 o'clock Saturday and Sunday. So we're 7 to 7 Monday through Friday.
Okay. Perfect.
And on the door, there's going to be a number. That's the facility number. Okay.
Okay.
So don't call Maria, because Maria works from home.
Okay.
And you'll say, like, I'm here with Pretzel, you know, because of COVID, no one's coming in. One of my employees will come out, they'll grab Pretzel. And then when you come to pick her up, same thing, you would just call and they would bring her out for you.
Okay.
Are you on Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
You can follow us on Instagram.
I already am.
You already are? Cool. So then you would just message us and just say, like, hi, I'm Pretzel's mom. And whenever we post anything with Pretzel, we'll like tag you in it.
Perfect.
So that you can like kind of check in on her and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then if we
What
notice,
else? Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
What do I need to bring along with me besides her food and medication?
Training treats.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'd recommend not feeding the morning of so that she's hungry, or at least not giving her her full meal. Because it happens with puppies where the owners will feed them in the morning, and then when we try to work with them, they won't do anything.
Okay. I'll not give her breakfast then.
Yeah. And then, so yeah,
in
a little bag.
Yeah.
And then put the instructions for her medication.
Okay.
Okay. And then, I guess we've been having issues with our phone line.
Okay.
A couple of people said they called and it wasn't ringing and we didn't hear it ring. So if that happens, you can also message us on Instagram.
Okay.
Because that's how we communicate. Like, so like, let's say we have Pretzel and like we notice like she's got blood in her diarrhea. In her food.
Right.
We would like, you know, my employees typically take a picture and send it, and then they'll tell the client like, hey, we just want to let you know that we noticed this.
Right.
So they'll keep it. We use because everybody has access to the Instagram, so we use it kind of like texting, but this way the employees don't have to like give out their number and stuff.
Sure.
That they're able to reach the client. So we use that for communication as well. And you can even video call on Instagram in case the phone isn't working. I'm gonna get a new phone system and then it just happened like today, this morning, and then like on Friday evening, someone was here to pick up their dog and the phone wasn't ringing for some reason.
I didn't know that you could call.
Yeah, if you go on the Instagram and then like, I think you just pull up the message or whatever. Let me see here.
Oh, there's a video thingy?
Yeah, right next to like the flag thing right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, got it.
Video, and that's the video call.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, yeah, so just give us a call. Somebody will come out to pick her up. And we even have people that'll just message us and say, like, we're going to bring in, you know, Bruno tomorrow. And we say, okay. You know, because we average now, we're about 16 to 20 dogs.
Okay.
Once things get busier and it's like we have 80 dogs, then it's like, okay, now we need you to schedule because now we have a lot of, you know, dogs coming in and stuff. But right now it's still slow. I'm not worried about it.
Okay. But that's a nice group size though.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. I guess you'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Well, we'll see you then. And if you need anything else, you let us know, okay?
I will.
Thanks,
Jesse. Have a good rest of the weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.